The death of Henry III of England in 1272 marked the end of a turbulent and transformative reign in English history. As a monarch, Henry's long rule spanned 56 years, second only to that of his illustrious father, King John, and later surpassed by other monarchs. His death, however, signified more than the passing of a ruler. It was a pivotal moment that led to the ascension of Edward I and set the stage for a period of significant legal, social, and political transformation. This essay examines the life and reign of Henry III, the circumstances surrounding his death, and the consequences for England. Background and early life. Born on October 1, 1207, Henry III was the eldest son of King John and Isabella of Angoulême. His early years were shaped by the political chaos of his father's reign, which culminated in the sealing of the Magna Carta in 1215 and subsequent rebellion by the English barons. Henry ascended the throne in 1216 at the tender age of 9 after John's death, a time when the kingdom was embroiled in civil war and a French invasion was threatening English sovereignty. The minority government, led by William Marshal, Earl of Pembroke, faced immense challenges. Marshal's regency restored stability, reissuing Magna Carta to placate the rebellious barons while successfully repelling French forces. This careful balancing act between royal authority and baronial power defined Henry's early reign and left a lasting impression on him. Henry III's reign, achievements and challenges. Henry III ruled during a time of considerable political and social change in England. His reign was characterized by an enduring struggle to balance royal authority with the demands of the barons and the evolving constitutional framework. Henry's devotion to the arts and his religious piety were hallmarks of his personality, yet his governance was often criticized for favoritism and financial mismanagement. Religious devotion and patronage of the arts. One of Henry's most significant achievements was his role in fostering the development of Gothic architecture in England, most notably through his patronage of Westminster Abbey. Inspired by the French style of architecture, Henry initiated the rebuilding of the abbey in 1245 to serve as a symbol of royal power and religious devotion. The abbey became the centerpiece of English coronations and royal ceremonies, leaving a lasting cultural and architectural legacy. Beyond Westminster, Henry's contributions to ecclesiastical art and the liturgical life of the church highlighted his deep piety. Henry's religiosity extended to his relationships with the papacy. His close ties to successive popes reflected a commitment to upholding papal authority, often to the detriment of his domestic political standing. For example, his support for Pope Innocent IV's campaigns against the Holy Roman Emperor and his willingness to involve England in papal financial schemes alienated his barons. Governance and political tensions. Henry's reliance on foreign advisors and his extravagant spending fueled resentment among the English barons. His marriage to Eleanor of Provence in 1236 brought a retinue of her relatives, known as the Savoyards, to England, many of whom were granted influential positions. This favoritism, coupled with his financial dependency on heavy taxation and loans, exacerbated tensions with the nobility. The king's inability to manage these dynamics effectively culminated in a constitutional crisis of the 1250s and 1260s. The Provisions of Oxford, 1258, a landmark document, sought to limit royal authority by creating a council of barons to oversee governance and requiring the king to convene parliament regularly. Although Henry agreed to these provisions under pressure, he later sought to repudiate them, prompting a prolonged period of instability. The Second Barons' War. The baronial discontent erupted into open rebellion in the Second Barons' War, 1264 to 1267, led by Simon de Montfort, Earl of Leicester. De Montfort championed the baronial cause, seeking to enforce the Provisions of Oxford and reduce royal power. The war reached its zenith at the Battle of Lewes in 1264, where Henry and his son, Prince Edward, were captured. De Montfort effectively ruled England for a brief period, implementing reforms that expanded the role of Parliament and included representatives from towns and boroughs for the first time. However, de Montfort's regime was short-lived. Edward escaped captivity in 1265 and rallied loyalist forces. The decisive Battle of Evesham later that year saw the defeat and death of de Montfort, restoring royal authority. The aftermath of the war was marked by a period of retribution against rebel barons, but also efforts at reconciliation to stabilize the kingdom. Economic and social context. Henry's reign occurred during a period of economic and social evolution in medieval England. The growth of towns, trade, and markets underpinned significant changes in the country's economic structure. However, the heavy taxation imposed to fund Henry's military campaigns and lavish projects created financial strain, especially for the landed gentry and peasantry. Additionally, Henry's policies often placed England at odds with neighboring powers. His attempts to assert influence in Gascony and his alliance with the papacy in continental politics drained resources and achieved limited success. Domestically, the increasing economic disparities and resentment of royal financial policies contributed to the broader discontent that fueled the baronial rebellions. The final years and death of Henry III. By the early 1270s, Henry III's health began to decline. His focus shifted to securing a smooth transition of power for his son, Edward, who had already demonstrated his leadership during the Second Barons' War. Edward embarked on a crusade to the Holy Land in 1270, leaving the governance of England in his father's hands. Henry III died on November 16, 1272, at Westminster at the age of 65. His death was relatively peaceful, but it left England in an uncertain position, with Edward still abroad. The transition of power was handled smoothly by the Royal Council, demonstrating the institutional stability that had developed during Henry's reign. Edward was proclaimed king immediately upon his father's death, even though he would not return to England to be crowned until 1274. Legacy of Henry III. Henry III's death marked the end of a reign that had seen both progress and discord. His legacy is complex, reflecting a monarch who was deeply committed to his faith and culture but often struggled to navigate the political realities of his time. Despite his shortcomings, Henry's reign laid the groundwork for significant developments in English governance. The evolution of Parliament. One of the most enduring aspects of Henry's legacy was the role of Parliament. While Henry himself resisted constraints on his authority, the constitutional crises of his reign contributed to the evolution of parliamentary institutions. The baronial movement, particularly during the provisions of Oxford and the Second Barons' War, highlighted the need for a more representative form of governance. By the time of his death, the concept of a regular parliament had taken root, setting the stage for future developments under Edward I. Cultural and religious contributions. Henry's patronage of art and architecture also left a lasting impact. Westminster Abbey remains one of the most iconic symbols of English history and heritage, embodying the cultural aspirations of Henry's reign. His efforts to align the English monarchy with broader European trends in architecture and piety underscore his vision of a kingdom that was both culturally vibrant and deeply religious. A precursor to Edward I's reforms. The peaceful transition of power following Henry's death was a testament to the stability that had been achieved by the end of his reign. Edward I's ascension marked the beginning of a new era in English history, one characterized by legal reform, military campaigns, and the consolidation of royal authority. Edward's reign would see the further development of Parliament, the conquest of Wales, and efforts to subjugate Scotland, earning him the moniker Hammer of the Scots. Henry's influence on Edward cannot be understated. The younger king inherited both the strengths and weaknesses of his father's rule, and his experiences during the baronial conflicts of Henry's reign shaped his approach to governance. Edward's legal and administrative reforms built upon the foundations laid during his father's time, while his military ambitions reflected a more assertive approach to kingship. Conclusion. The death of Henry III in 1272 was a turning point in English history, marking the end of a reign that spanned more than half a century. While his tenure as king was marred by conflict and criticism, it also saw significant cultural and institutional developments that would shape the future of England. Henry's devotion to the arts and his role in the evolution of parliamentary governance left an indelible mark on the nation. The peaceful transition of power to Edward I demonstrated the maturity of England's political institutions, a testament to the progress made during Henry's reign despite its challenges. As such, Henry III's death was not merely the end of an era but the beginning of a new chapter in English history, one that would see the monarchy and Parliament continue to evolve in tandem. His legacy, though mixed, remains an integral part of the story of medieval England. Thanks for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe to Medieval Chronicles 1066 to journey back to the Middle Ages. Stay curious.